Revealed, the incredible truth behind my parents' decision I surprising own 25% of this venue. Alex felt the weight of the aged document in her hands, a crisp legal paper that seemed to radiate life and silence at once. It was both exhilarating and gut-wrenching to discover she owned a portion of the local bar in the heart of her community. All her life, she bustled through life trying to make sense of finicky shifts in her circumstances, but this revelation spun the world on its axis. She dropped the document, her heart racing. Why had her mother hidden this? The thought clawed at her insides, betrayal coiling like barbed wire around her chest. Mom. Her voice echoed off the faded walls of their small, cluttered house. Alex had spent weeks learning the ins and outs of waitressing, imagining a future built on blood, sweat, and tears, but this? This was an avalanche of questions. Her mind scrambled over the implications, each thought louder than the last, drowning out the steady rhythm of her chaotic life. Sarah shuffled into the cramped living room, worry etched into every line of her face. As Alex recounted the details nestled within that legal document, she felt time stretch oddly, a blend of anticipation and dread hanging in the air. Why didn't you tell me? Alex demanded, her voice sharp. The unsaid words sliced through the quiet, igniting a flicker of fear in her mother's eyes. Sarah sighed, her shoulders heavy as she sank into a chair. I didn't want to burden you. Your grandfather always believed that barn would bring joy to the community, but it struggled to survive. I didn't want you to feel tied to it. Burden. The familiar word ricocheted in her mind, and Alex's heart tightened further. Hadn't she always borne the weight of their sacrifices? The thought of reclaiming her grandfather's dream took root, but it was mingled with uncertainty, a rising tide of fear threatening to drown her aspirations in a sea of self-doubt. As she paced in their small kitchen, tension spiked when the reality of the local developer's plans resurfaced. They were eager to gentrify, strip the character from the barn that had cradled so many memories. Could she fight for something she barely understood? Her hands trembled as she thought of the polished professionals who had a singular vision: profit. How could she corral her half-whispered dreams into something concrete? Before she could spiral further, a flicker of recognition spurred her out of despair. Jamie, her childhood friend who had left for architecture, was back in town. Why had that thought even crossed her mind? Part of her craved his perspective, while the other half wrestled with insecurities. Jamie had the expertise she lacked. What do I have to offer? She muttered to herself. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Alex plunged deeper into this emotional storm, Jamie offered to help her brainstorm. Their childhood memories of that barn, the sounds of laughter, the feeling of safety wrapped around her like a warm embrace. His encouragement teased a sliver of hope, igniting a spark she dared not fan. Yet, every step toward her dreams felt like a tightrope walk high above a chasm. At the upcoming town meeting, the anticipation felt electric, but doubt strangled her resolve. Under the scrutiny of skeptical faces, she stammered through her justifications for the barn's potential, while a voice from the crowd shouted accusations that turned her blood cold. What qualifications do you have? Her breath quickened, muscles tensed. Could she truly harness this opportunity, or was it all a naive illusion built on foggy family hopes? Just when she thought she might summon the words to fight, a shocking revelation about her grandfather threatened to unravel everything. The room went quiet, and the weight of revelations loomed ominously, leaving her standing at a precipice, ready to either transform their legacy or watch it slip through her fingers. The silence in the cramped town hall was almost suffocating as Alex stood there, heart pounding, the murmurs of the crowd fading into an ominous hush. The revelation about her grandfather hung in the air like a dark cloud ready to unleash a storm. What had been a personal journey of discovery was on the cusp of becoming a public spectacle, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Her mind whirred, racing back to the stories her mother had told, tales about her grandfather's dedication to the barn, how it had been a refuge during stormy nights and a gathering place bathed in laughter. Those memories surged forward, clashing violently with the reality of what was now at risk. Is she even remotely qualified to speak on this? Another derisive comment rang out from the crowd, piercing through her resolve. Alex met the glares and smirks of those she had always known. Questions of competence buzzed like angry bees, each stinging her more than the last. Maybe I don't have all the answers, but I have a stake in this, she finally said, her voice steadying. My grandfather believed in this barn, and I believe I can fight to keep it alive. Alex surprised herself with those words. They poured out like a flood, strong and defiant. Perhaps that inner strength had always been there, waiting to be excavated beneath layers of self-doubt. The realization sparked a flicker of determination within her, the first step towards taking control of her inheritance. Jamie, sitting quietly in the back, flashed her an encouraging smile, a silent reminder of the shared past that had once felt comforting. She warmed to his presence, feeling the buoyancy of support. Alex decided she had to gather her thoughts, but she needed more than just emotional backing, she needed a plan. The meeting buzzed on, the discussion drifting into more technical proposals. Ideas clashed, voices rose and fell, yet Alex's mind was churning with possibilities. She thought of her grandfather's dream and how her own experiences as a waitress taught her about the community's heartbeat. By the time the meeting ended, and with it the looming threat of gentrification, an idea had picked up steam in her mind. Maybe she could make this fight an initiative the barn could transform into a space of local creativity, pulling together artists and makers. But how could this vision materialize when she still felt like an outsider caught in a web of complicated history? As the chairwoman announced the conclusion, a small group gathered around Alex, voices overlapping in animated conversation. Unexpectedly, a twinge of excitement surged in her veins. They were intrigued, hungry for change and a chance to support her burgeoning vision. It felt remarkably different from the lonely battle she feared. However, in the back of her mind lingered the unresolved issue: how was she supposed to convince the rest of the town or even herself that something better didn't just live in memories? As she began to outline her ideas, an insistent voice in her head screamed for solidity. She needed to think strategically about her next steps. Feeling recharged yet tethered to the weight of her grandfather's legacy, Alex walked out of the town hall with purpose. But could she really navigate the rough waters ahead, or was she bound to drown in indecision? With every encounter with opposition, she found herself standing not merely to defend a building, but to reclaim a piece of her own identity. And as the night air wrapped around her, a thought began to crystallize: perhaps she was meant to do more than protect a dream, she could redefine its very essence. With Jamie's help, she'd pull on every thread of her past, stitching together a vision that transcended mere nostalgia. But the true challenge lay before her. How would she orchestrate this monumental change without losing herself in the process? Like an unscripted play, the next act beckoned, filled with uncertainty and promise. The moment had come to face not only the developers but the shadows of her own self-doubt. Would she step into the light and let her vision take flight, or would fear ground her once again? The chill in the air wrapped tightly around Alex as she stepped onto the porch of her grandfather's barn, each breath clouding before her like her own uncertainty. The wood of the structure creaked gently, echoing the memories she fetched from the depths of her mind: laughter, creativity, and the unmistakable spirit of her grandfather. Her heart still raced from the confrontation at the town hall, but now she felt a strange sense of clarity amidst the disarray. Thoughts of the meeting replayed in her mind, weaving in and out of her consciousness. She had claimed her stake, not merely in the barn, but in the fight against the tide of development threatening to transform everything she cherished. The echo of disapproval from the townsfolk was still fresh, but along with it came the spark of determination igniting within her. She was more than an heir to her grandfather's legacy, she was a custodian of a vision that could breathe new life into the old structure. A sudden wind whipped through the trees lining the property, causing her to shiver. Stepping inside, she felt welcomed by the familiar scent of aged wood mingled with the remnants of hay and paint. Alex wandered deeper into the barn, envisioning it filled with life and energy, a vibrant marketplace of art, music, and creative expression. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was a tangible dream waiting to be articulated and realized. Sitting on an old stool, she began to pull her thoughts together. Strategizing felt like a necessary step, yet the brewing notion of collaboration lingered in the air. She needed allies, more people like the encouraging faces she'd seen after the meeting. Perhaps they were waiting for someone to take the helm, to galvanize the existing talent within the community. Names flowed through her mind, connections forming, yet doubts crept in. What about the venue's finances? Could they make a sustainable model that would draw support instead of derision? Questions swirled, but Alex fought against the gnawing instinct to retreat. She rose from the stool, pacing, seeking physical motion to counteract her mental paralyzation. In a moment of spontaneity, she reached for her phone. With nimble fingers, she scrolled through her contacts until she found Jamie's name. "I need to brainstorm with you," she sent, her determination propelling the message across the digital divide. As she awaited his response, Alex glanced around the barn again. This was her grounding force, the tactile symbol of her grandfather's dreams. It hit her how critical it was to merge her vision with an actionable strategy, and how Jamie could offer the perfect blend of creativity and pragmatism. He had always had a knack for project management, even while juggling his own artistic pursuits. Her phone buzzed, jerking her from her thoughts, a quick response from Jamie igniting a flicker of joy. "Let us meet tomorrow." "I'm in. Bring your ideas." Hope swelled within her, flooding the self-doubt that had encroached. But as she contemplated their meeting, a darker thought loomed at the periphery. Despite the burgeoning optimism, Alex was still aware of the antagonists who might resist her plans. The developers weren't merely faceless threats, they were real people with interests that were poised against hers. Determined not to let fear return, she decided it was time to confront those challenges head-on. As she returned to the porch, the air once again felt heavy with expectations, hers and those of the community intertwined with her aspirations. The night deepened, and the stars began to pepper the sky, glimmering like the myriad possibilities blooming in her heart. With the promise of a new partnership on the horizon, she sensed the course of her journey was shifting. Yet beneath the surface of burgeoning ideas lay a relentless question: could she truly balance her idealism with the practicalities necessary to succeed? The moment called for an unearthing of strengths she had yet to fully embrace. And just as she turned to head inside, one last thought struck her, a realization that she needed more than just a pitch. She required a solid foundation of information to present to the town. There were decisions made by her parents that remained hidden, truths about ownership that could shift the pendulum of support if uncovered. With renewed purpose, Alex made a silent vow to forge ahead, armed with the knowledge that the past could reveal insights to catalyze her future. Tomorrow would require her to step not just into the role of advocate, but of investigator. The past held answers she had yet to uncover, and the urgency for resolution tightened around her like her own shadow. The morning sun peeked through the newly dusty windows of the barn, casting slants of light that mixed with the lingering shadows of the night. Alex's heart quickened as she pushed aside the lingering sleep from her eyes. Today was pivotal. Today was the day she would confront her past. She couldn't allow uncertainty to anchor her. The urgency felt like a jolt of electricity through her veins. Sitting at her kitchen table, notebook open and pens arranged geometrically in front of her, Alex's mind raced with thoughts. She had a meeting with Jamie coming up, a chance to reshape her vision with someone who could grasp the chaos swirling within her. But first, she needed to comprehend her inheritance, the layers of family decisions that had been shrouded in silence. Each turn of the page in her notebook saw her scribbling questions and point-form ideas, but each time she pushed a thought, another nagging doubt emerged. What was she truly entitled to? Could those hidden truths dismantle the very foundation upon which her aspirations rested? She instinctively tugged at the ends of her sleeves as she battled the rising tide of anxiety. The images of her parents flitted through her mind, their faces betraying nothing of their business dealings. Did they discard her agency for the sake of appearances? Or had they genuinely believed she should build her own life, free from the weight of their choices? If she owned part of the barn, that could be her turning point, the leverage she needed against the developers who threatened the land. She needed to act, to search, to uncover. She imagined herself not only as an advocate but as an investigator diving into fragile preserves of time. It required a dual commitment, to her dreams and to the family legacy. Alex grabbed her phone and searched for any public records related to the barn's ownership. Each click of her screen felt like a step deeper into the mystery. Hours slipped by in a blur of data gathering and cross-referencing until the urgency shifted from anxiety to invigorating curiosity. The more she expected to travel the path of documentation, the more she filled that notebook with proverbial breadcrumbs leading her towards authenticity. It unveiled a collaboration of facts and her own passion, two forces she desperately needed to unite. A ping from her phone snapped her out of her reverie. It was Jamie, curious about meeting details, and that small nudge helped refocus her mind. She typed back, confirming their rendezvous with enthusiasm, her spirit rekindling with the prospect of sharing ideas. Yet, in the back of her mind, the notion that she had confrontation waiting loomed. Could Jamie help her connect the dots? Together, they might sift through the layers of bureaucracy surrounding her grandparents' decisions. It was more than planning for a future, it was a reckoning with shadows of the past that had long dictated familial obligations. Her brow furrowed thoughtfully as she realized the implications of discovery. If her stake in the barn truly spanned into 25% ownership, that would galvanize her plans. The developers could no longer casually brush her aside. She would possess the concrete authority to defend what was rightfully hers. The clock ticked toward their meeting time, and with conscious breaths, she tidied her unkempt workspace. Layering her notes in an organized stack, Alex felt an unexpected calm wash over her. This was her momentum, the gravitational pull that would steer her back into the fight. Determined, she headed toward the barn, envisioning the life she could manifest there. Vibrancy could seep through the walls again, her grandfather's spirit could dance among colorful displays of creativity. She could transform the barn from an object of reminiscence to a beacon of potential. Yet implicit in her ambition was the awareness of an imminent clash. The developers would not yield so easily, they would see her as a hurdle rather than a participant. As she arrived, she couldn't shake the feeling that today with Jamie might alter everything, but at what cost? The sun hung high, but the shadows lengthened. The thrill of discovery was tempered by the looming prospect of confrontation. Alex stood at the precipice, aware that this journey was just beginning. Just then, a gnawing question surfaced: what exactly had her parents hidden, and how might it change the fate of the barn and her own life? With this new layer of anticipation wrapping around her like the cool autumn air, Alex stepped inside the barn, ready to unearth her family's secrets and seize her future. The barn door creaked open, and Alex stepped inside, her heart pounding in sync with the rhythmic drumming of her thoughts. Dust motes danced in the dappled sunlight, illuminating countless memories etched into the worn wooden beams. This place had sheltered her childhood, masking its secrets yet providing an unmistakable sense of belonging. As she breathed in the familiar scent of hay and aged wood, the past and present collided, sending her thoughts spiraling. She took a moment to absorb her surroundings, then focused her gaze on a corner cluttered with old tools and rusted machinery, remnants of her family's labor. These artifacts held the weight of choices made long before her time, choices that echoed her parents' reluctance to reveal the truth. Today, every object felt charged with potential. This was her chance to confront the past and become the author of her own narrative. Opening her notebook, Alex scanned her exhaustive list of questions and artifacts she had yet to uncover. Her fingers traced over the words as she felt a flicker of determination build within her. If her parents had kept these details sealed, it was now her responsibility to unravel them. Each layer of secrecy was a staircase leading upwards, a path toward clarity and self-actualization. Yet doubt lingered like an unwelcome intruder. What if she wasn't equipped for what lay beneath the surface? She shook her head, pushing the thought away. Confronting her fear was essential, and she intended to seize this opportunity. With every glance around the barn, Alex envisioned transformation, not just the space itself, but her future within it. The sound of tires crunching on gravel outside pulled her from her reverie. Jamie had arrived. With adrenaline firing her resolve, Alex drew a deep breath and adjusted her posture, adopting a confident stance as she gathered her notes. The meeting would be pivotal, an interaction capable of spiraling her from uncertainty to clarity. When Jamie walked in, dressed casually yet assertively, he exuded a refreshing enthusiasm. "Ready to dive into the chaos?" he asked with a wink. Alex couldn't help but smile, his energy was infectious. "More than ready," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. They exchanged a few pleasantries before settling into a makeshift workspace amidst the barn's nostalgia. As she laid out her findings, Jamie leaned forward, engrossed. Each piece of information she shared felt liberating, as if the barn were lifting its weight from her shoulders. With every revelation, Alex found her voice gaining strength, abounding with authenticity. "If I'm truly a part owner," she began, "I have a stake in this story. I cannot allow the developers to erase my past or the legacy imbued within this space." Jamie nodded, his eyes sparkling. "That's the spirit. We've got to put together a plan, then. We'll strategize your approach and weigh our options against the developers." The intensity sharpened as they brainstormed. Ideas flowed, intertwining pragmatism with creativity. For the first time, Alex began to see a future where the barn thrived, where her vision could take root. Yet as they mapped out their plans, a small voice within her whispered doubts. How hard would the developers fight? What if her 25% ownership was challenged, or worse, dismissed altogether? Visualizing confrontation sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. An unexpected knock at the barn door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Alex's heart raced. Had the developers arrived earlier than anticipated? This time, it wasn't just her future in jeopardy, it felt as if destiny itself was closing in. "Stay here," she instructed Jamie, her voice barely above a whisper. She approached the door, and as she grasped the handle, she felt the weight of her choices, her past, and the challenge ahead. What awaited her on the other side? Alex opened the door and gasped. The moment had arrived, determination pulsing through her veins, she would have to confront more than her dreams. The fate of the barn and ultimately, her destiny hung in the balance. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, casting an imposing shadow across the threshold. As Alex's eyes adjusted, recognition slashed through her confusion. Ben, the lead developer behind the proposed changes to the barn, exuded an air of calculated authority. His presence twisted the knot of anxiety inside her into a tighter coil. "Alex, isn't it?" he said, his tone smooth but laced with condescension. "I didn't expect to find you here. I thought you would have left this to your parents, like everyone else." Her chin instinctively lifted, a defiant posture rising within her. "This is my family's property, Ben. I have a stake in it too." His eyes danced with amusement, dismissing her claim. 25% ownership in a crumbling barn? You don't have the resources or the will to take this on. There are far more lucrative opportunities out there for someone like you. The implication stung, but with each word, Alex felt her resolve harden. The past may have been a weight around her neck, shackling her with insecurity, but standing at this juncture demanded she summon every ounce of courage she could muster. "I'm not here to negotiate my worth with you," she retorted, each syllable deliberate and firm. "I intend to uncover the truth of this place, and that means fighting for it no matter how big or intimidating you think you are." Ben's smile faded as he stepped inside the barn, his presence seeping into the very walls, filling the room with an oppressive intensity. "Let us not make this personal, Alex. I have a job to do here, and I'd hate to see you hinder the progress we could make together. Think of all the good we can bring." Alex felt a flicker of frustration rise like bile in her throat. The barn was more than mere bricks and beams to her, it represented her heritage, her identity, even the complications of her childhood. The barn held echoes of laughter, love, and deep-rooted pain that shaped her. "Progress for you may mean erasing everything that matters to me." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet unfazed. "Nothing matters in business aside from numbers. And in the end, those numbers spell either success or failure." Her heart raced at the provocation, igniting a fire within her she hadn't fully acknowledged. She had no desire to become another statistic. Failure isn't defined by the size of the investment. My family's legacy goes beyond profit margins. It's resilience, and I will not let you dictate its fate. Ben regarded her, an unexpected glint of respect mingled with annoyance flickering across his face. The tension escalated, thickening the air as they stared each other down. Be careful, Alex. This isn't a kid's game. I guarantee you will regret pushing against this, he warned, but there was an underlying realization in his voice. He recognized her fire, that unyielding resolve. Then I will do what it takes to stay in this fight, she replied, inhaling deeply, drawing strength from her surroundings. Fine, but remember this. He stepped back, gesturing as if he were chalking a line in the sand. Once we begin, there's no turning back. As he turned to leave, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. She was standing on unsteady ground, both exhilarating and terrifying. This confrontation had awakened within her fierce determination, but it also illuminated the depths of her challenge ahead. Alex returned to where Jamie waited, her heart drumming a fierce rhythm against her ribcage. We need a plan, and we need it fast. Did he threaten you? Jamie asked, leaning forward, concern etched across his face. No, but he made it clear this won't be easy, she replied, her mind racing with possibilities. Alex felt the threads of her newfound resolve weaving into a coherent action plan. The stakes rose, pulling her farther into the conflict. Against all odds, this battle for her identity had only just begun. Are you ready? Jamie asked, determination sparking in his eyes. More than ever, Alex declared, as layers of uncertainty peeled away, revealing the clear purpose beneath. But what strategies would she employ to protect her legacy from a force like Ben? The clock was ticking, and she could feel the encroaching shadows. With parameters established, Alex found herself hunched over a stack of papers in the dim light of the barn, pages filled with architectural plans and financial projections. Different paths diverged right before her, each promising unique outcomes. The adrenaline from her confrontation with Ben pooled into a pivotal energy, compelling her to transform her contemplations into action. Jamie shuffled next to her, glancing at the pages scattered across the weathered table. What do we start with? He asked, fingers tapping lightly on the wood, as if waiting for an answer that might coax a distinct plan into being. Instead of voicing her uncertainties, Alex imagined herself standing before the crowd again, not as the hesitant daughter of the property owners, but as a decisive leader. We need to understand every facet of this barn's potential, she replied finally. Ben sees it as a business, but it's a symbol. I want to breathe life into it, not raise it for profit. Jamie raised an eyebrow. You're talking about heritage. But we need to play by the rules he has set. If we want to keep Ben at bay, we have to be pragmatic. Pragmatic doesn't mean abandoning our ideals, she shot back, a chill running through her veins at the thought of giving in. Let us map out a strategy that balances both. With bold strokes, they outlined her vision, an event space that honored the barn's history while invoking a sense of community, workshops showcasing local artisans, gatherings reconnecting families, even seasonal fairs that could elevate the barn's presence. Each idea burst forth as Alex drew from memories of laughter that once filled these wooden beams. That's genius, Alex. Jamie said, enthusiasm igniting in his tone. Not only do we uphold the legacy, but we also generate income without compromising its sanctity. Fueled by renewed purpose, they dove deeper into practicalities. The calculations didn't just revolve around revenue, they included outreach strategies geared toward local businesses, community engagement, and social media marketing. Alex's heart raced as she envisioned reaching out to the townspeople, telling them about her plans, and inviting them back into the fold of their shared history. As they worked, Alex felt a tool within her sharpen an innate ability to weave inherited traditions into fresh possibilities. Each suggestion she made hung in the air, transforming from mere thoughts into actionable strategies. But as ideas flowed, doubt wove tightly between strands of ambition. What if Ben turned his resources against her vision? What if, despite her efforts, the community wasn't interested? The weight of the responsibility pressed down, prickling at her resolve. She had to confront these fears head-on. Do you ever feel like we're pushing against something far bigger than ourselves? She asked Jamie, pausing. Like if we make one wrong move, it could all come crashing down? Every entrepreneur feels that way, he replied, leaning closer, his voice sharpened with conviction. But your vision matters. Maybe we just need to stay several steps ahead of him. The sun began to set, rays filtering through the barn windows, illuminating the dust motes swirling around them. In that golden light, Alex realized they would need more allies. She quickly drafted a letter inviting local artists and craftsmen to join a focus group, a way to bring voices together and uphold the spirit of the barn. I'll send this out tomorrow, Alex declared, feeling the shake of anxiety in her hands slowly recede. They were inching closer to identifying a path, one rooted deeply in resilience. But action still loomed unanswered. Would the community respond? Would her efforts be perceived as genuine, or a penny ante challenge to Ben's focus on profit? As she prepared to leave, pushing papers aside and arranging her belongings, Jamie's phone buzzed. He glanced at the notification, then turned wide-eyed toward Alex. Ben's bringing in his board next week to finalize plans. We should be ready, he said, tension dousing the room like a cold splash. The time had come to confront not just Ben, but also her own insecurities. Then we'll have to ensure our vision stands tall by then, Alex said with a newfound force, her heart pounding fiercely. Would she be able to turn the tides in time? Would her vision become a reality, or would the ground beneath her continue to shift unpredictably? The following days felt unrelenting, as the looming deadline pressed heavily on Alex's shoulders. Each morning began with an urgency to seize the day, an inclination to approach her mission with conviction blurring the line between her growing confidence and palpable fear. The barn's timetable, once abstract, had transformed into something imminent. She could feel the whole structure resonating with the whispers of its past, and it compelled her to stand firm against Ben's encroachment. Sitting back with the plan stretched before her, Alex initiated brainstorming sessions with Jamie that morphed into intense strategic discussions. Each moment became an exercise in fortifying her vision. The focus group for local artisans was a gamble, one Alex felt was necessary yet precarious. Would their participation validate her goals, or deepen Ben's argument that they were out of touch with reality? Building alliances became a subtle art for Alex. Each call to local craftsmen felt like sending out a silent signal, an invitation to recognize the barn as more than just a historical site, to see it as a sanctuary of creativity. One afternoon, she paused, recalling an encounter with a local painter, a woman who infused color into the town's gray past. Perhaps she could be the first ally in Alex's corner, a voice to rally others. Her instinct drove her to pick up the phone and call Mary. As she navigated through the conversation, excitement danced within her while trepidation lingered. I'm planning to rejuvenate the barn, Mary. Think of art workshops, exhibitions, a place for creativity, she shared, trying not to focus on her own doubts. Mary listened, her presence palpable through the phone. That sounds magical, Alex. But are you ready for the potential backlash? Ben won't take this lightly. Each word stung while also igniting a flame of determination within Alex. I have to try. We need a space that champions our heritage. I can't let it slip away. After the call, Alex lingered on the contours of her vision, a growing certainty bolstered by Mary's enthusiasm. Yet, the unrelenting thought of Ben's impending meeting gnawed at her peace. What did she truly have to offer that could withstand his strategic machinations? Efficiency and profit versus rich narrative and artistic expression. Her trust in her instincts began to crystallize into something stronger. She discovered a rhythm in articulation, an ability to frame her ideas succinctly. Late into the evenings, she rehearsed. Standing before the cold barn walls as her audience, she pitched the concept of workshops merging old techniques with modern expressions, both as a preservation method and a source of revenue. Each word empowered her. Each gesture crafted her identity not just as a caretaker of the barn, but as a leader willing to innovate and honor tradition. As the date drew nearer, anxiety morphed into resolve, and every conversation with Jamie hinted at the burgeoning belief that they could make an indelible impact. With every plan laid out, however, doubt pierced her optimism, whispering warnings of potential mockery from Ben or the harsh reality of financial burden. Her thoughts became a ceaseless cycle of validation and self-doubt, oscillating like unsteady ground. And then it happened, an unexpected encounter. She was in town when she bumped into Matt, the town's mayor. After exchanging pleasantries, he struck a chord in her mind when he mentioned community support for local initiatives. "Alex," he said, leaning in, "everyone's been wondering about the barn's future. Maybe you're just what we need to ignite some excitement." The board's feeling the pressure from Ben too. "You have a lot of sway right now." Those words, layered with validation, ignited a spark deep within her. Instead of seeing what she feared, loss and negation, Alex concluded that perhaps she needed to harness the current of local support. She had a chance, not just for survival, but for triumph. Feeling buoyed, she returned to the barn, pages flipping under her fingers with newfound intensity. She had a vision, a burgeoning confidence, and a palpable urge to rise against the impending storm. But as she stepped away from her plans, the question hung ominously in the air: how far was she willing to go to protect the spirit of the barn? Ben's board meeting approached, and with it, a wave of uncertainty. She felt the time tightening around her, the figurative clock ticking louder, and within her, the latent question lingered: what would be the fulcrum of her fight, her ideals, or the fear of losing everything? As the board meeting loomed closer, Alex felt like a tightrope walker suspended between ambition and anxiety. The barn, her potential canvas for revitalization, stood as both a symbol of her heritage and a battleground for her fledgling dreams. The impending confrontation with Ben was not merely about preservation, it was about her burgeoning identity as a leader. Each day slipped through her fingers like grains of sand in an hourglass, reminding her that time was not on her side. After a restless night filled with half-formed strategies and contradictions, Alex made her way to the barn the following morning. Sunlight filtered through the dusty windows, illuminating the forgotten corners steeped in history. Inspiration came unexpectedly as she surveyed the space. The peeling paint, the creaky floorboards, they all spoke to her of the stories they held, the lives that had touched the barn. With a determined air, Alex grabbed her notebook and outlined her core message. She would not merely seek to preserve the barn, she would champion it as a beacon of local artistry. Each workshop idea became a vivid thread in her vision of collaboration where local painters, sculptors, and musicians could intermingle and breathe life back into their community's narrative. The prospect filled her with a sense of urgency and purpose, sweetening the challenge ahead. She envisioned creating a program that celebrated not just the barn's history but also engaged with the present, with its artists and creators. Finding her voice became a journey of continual reflection, wrestling with questions that morphed her from caretaker to activist. How did creativity flourish amid business efficiency? How could she balance tradition with modern expression without undermining either? During her preparations, self-doubt burrowed in like an unwelcome guest. What if her passion was merely a dream? Was she merely a distraction against Ben's calculated strategies? Conversations with Jamie turned more fraught, their exchanges feverish with anticipation but tainted by murmurs of potential pitfalls. Jamie, sensing Alex's struggle, pushed her to confront her fears directly. "You need to claim this space, Alex. Believe in it enough that others have no choice but to follow. You are not just fighting for the barn, but for yourself." Those words hung in the air long after Jamie had gone, a challenge and a mantra. As the hours trickled by, Alex filled the barn with the sound of her rehearsals, pacing with fervor, testing her pitch until the arguments flowed seamlessly from her lips. She focused less on Ben's tactics and more on the narrative she wanted to create. Each inflection, each passionate gesture fortified her resolve. Yet shadows of intimidation danced in her thoughts, especially as the board meeting approached. What would she say when confronted with Ben's polished approach? He would tout profit, numbers, and properties, while she would weave a tapestry of hope, history, and creativity. Could she pierce through the fog of doubt that enshrouded her ambitions to ensure that the spirit of the barn emerged victorious? A disquieting thought struck her. What if she was unprepared? The very essence of her dreams rested on this meeting. The question morphed into an urgent whisper: who was she beneath the weight of expectations? The pivotal moment arrived, and Alex donned her armor of confidence, grasping the papers detailing her plans. But as she stepped outside, she found herself hesitating. Would she go in unarmed or wield the truth that lingered just beneath her consciousness? Her fingers danced nervously around an unexpected envelope tucked in her bag, something that could turn the tide if revealed. A recent discovery: her late parents' decision to leave her 25% ownership of the barn, a revelation that conferred both responsibility and empowerment. Ambivalence wrestled within her. Was it a detail she should unleash or hold as leverage? As the time neared for her to face the assembled board, she realized she had a choice. The meeting didn't merely symbolize her battle against Ben, it was also a significant crossroads for Alex herself. In that charged moment, the air thrummed with possibility, and she mustered the courage to decide: would her voice be silent, or would it proclaim the truth? The tension gripped her chest as she approached the meeting room. As she opened the door, her heart raced, her resolve crystallizing. What would happen if she claimed her legacy? What ripple would that single revelation send through the hearts of those gathered? The moment of truth loomed in the air, pregnant with possibility. The room was packed, an assembly of faces reflecting skepticism and resentment, punctuated by curiosity. Ben stood confidently at the front, orchestrating his minions like a well-rehearsed symphony. As Alex stepped forward, her presence seemed to cut through the murmurs, but uncertainty wormed its way back into her mind. How could she make her voice resonate amidst this crowd? Jamie's reassuring nod from the audience fortuitously anchored her. She took a deep breath, her pulse pounding as she recalled her purpose: not just to protect the barn, but to dare to redefine its role within the community. He was right, this was her moment. "Thank you for allowing me to present today," she began, her voice unwavering. "I stand here not only as an heir to a legacy but as a passionate advocate for a vision. The barn is not merely a building, it embodies the heart and history of our community." Skepticism shifted into rapt attention. As she spoke, Alex unveiled her proposal, reimagining the barn into a multifunctional space that celebrated art, creativity, and community engagement. The outlines of her vision glimmered with vibrant possibilities, and she felt the weight of fear dissolve into courage, each point resonating like the beat of a drum in her chest. Then came the moment: her parents' hidden decision, the 25% ownership laid out as the fulcrum of her argument. "I discovered an important aspect of my involvement in this barn," she proclaimed, lifting the envelope that held the legal documents. "My parents entrusted me not just with a stake, but with the responsibility to ensure its legacy lives on. I refuse to let this place be reduced to mere profit margins. It symbolizes our history and our future, my future." Gasps echoed from the audience, and she noticed a ripple of surprised expressions bloom into recognition. Beneath the layers of disbelief, she sowed seeds of potential allies who might finally see her not as an inexperienced youth but as a legitimate stakeholder. Ben's brow furrowed as he attempted to regain control, but Alex pressed on, emboldened. "We have a chance to redefine what this barn can become. Instead of tearing it down, let us invest in its rebirth. Let us engage local artists, educators, and families. We can cultivate creativity, and in doing so, create a sustainable model for the future." She focused on the faces before her, some skeptical, others intrigued, and underscored her position. "Innovation doesn't dwell in isolation, it thrives in community. I want to be a catalyst for that change." The warmth of passion fueled her confidence as she drew in the listeners, effortlessly interlacing her narrative with their aspirations. The murmurs swelled, some in favor, some against, but she was no longer the hesitant girl scared of her surroundings. She was an assertive leader, proclaiming the barn's significance. As the meeting wound down, a pivotal question emerged from the audience. "What kind of support do you envision gathering?" Alex paused, her thoughts coalescing into a clear strategy. "I plan to implement workshops and exhibitions, showcasing our local talent while driving income. Already, I've begun conversations with several artisans willing to contribute." Her words conjured a sense of unity, a chance to reclaim the barn together. Vanessa's hesitation was palpable, recognizing that her fire was persuasive, the call for collaboration appealing to those who saw beyond quick profits. "You have a lot of promise in your ideas," he muttered, his swagger shaken. Moments later, when the meeting adjourned, the chatter among attendees thickened with possibility. Some approached her, smiles breaking through previous doubt. They inquired further about her plans, eager to support the vision she had ignited. As she walked out of the meeting room, Jamie met her with a triumphant grin. "You did it, Alex. You took control." A wave of exhilaration swept through her. She had firmly claimed her identity not just as her grandfather's granddaughter, but as a transformative leader within her community. Her heart swelled as she reflected on the journey. Thus far, from confusion and self-doubt to recognition of her strengths, no longer cradled by shadow, she was standing in the light of clarity and purpose. Alex's journey wasn't merely about preserving the barn but reimagining her own future as she carried the legacy forward. She had proven herself capable. She had transformed fear into a catalytic force for change. With this newfound clarity, she glanced back at the barn, a symbol of her inheritance, yet no longer just a relic of the past. It was now a flourishing node of creativity, integral to her community. The urgency that had once threatened to paralyze her had transformed into drive. She pledged to return to her roots, unearthing latent potential, and bravely navigating the path forward. As she stepped outside, a gust of wind swept through, brushing against her cheeks like a congratulatory whisper. Alex inhaled deeply, a solid confidence overcoming her as she readied herself to share this new vision with the world. Now was the time to take her triumph and build momentum, to share her story beyond the barn. It was time for other aspiring leaders to rally around her cause. Reveling in her growth, she was fueled by a powerful realization: she possessed not only the potential to honor her family's legacy but also to carve her own path in this ever-evolving narrative. With every step she took away from that meeting, Alex felt lighter, transformed both personally and professionally. She was done letting fear define her. She had decided to take her place as not only a custodian of the barn but an architect of its inviting future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.